Welcome back to All About Winning Daily Fantasy Sports. My name is Ty Patton. A small three-game Saturday slate concludes with a Saturday night primetime game with playoff implications for both teams as the 8-6 Los Angeles Rams are on playoff life support and need help to get one of the wild cards in the NFC. Visit the NFC West leading San Francisco 49ers, who come in with an 11-3 record and need a win to set up an NFC West championship game with the Seattle Seahawks in Week 17 and potentially home field advantage throughout the playoffs. The 49ers come into this game as a 6.5 point home favorite with a game total of 44.5 points. Before we unpack this game, I want to share the numbers that are fantasy relevant to the Showdown contest itself. Up to and including Monday night's Colts-Saints game, there have been 106 Showdown contests during the 2019 season. These Showdown contests have an average winning score of 132.16, with an average winning captain score of 42.58. Since the average captain score represents 32% of the average winning score, I focus a lot of attention to the captain's position. With that being said, the captain's position breaks down as follows through those 106 Showdown slates. The underdog running back has been the captain for the winning lineup more than any other position, 21 times for 20%. The favored quarterback, 19 times for 18%. The favored wide receiver has also been the captain for the winning lineup 19 times for 18%. The underdog wide receiver, 14 times for 13%. The favored running back has been the captain in the winning lineup 13 times for 12%. The underdog quarterback has been the captain in the winning lineup 7 times for 7%. The favorite defensive special teams has been the captain in the winning lineup 6 times for 6%. The underdog kicker has been the captain in the winning lineup 2 times for 2%. The favorite tight end has been the captain in the winning lineup 2 times for 2%. The underdog defensive special team has been the captain in the winning lineup 2 times for 2%. And the underdog tight end has been the captain in the winning lineup 1 time for 1%. Now, I broke this down and combined the positions, whether they were the underdog or favorite, and it breaks down as follows. Running backs have been the captain for the winning lineup more than any other position, 34 times for 32%. Close behind is wide receivers, which represent 33 times for 31%. Quarterbacks, 26 times for 25%. All others represent 13 times for 12%. The overall straight-up won-loss record for a captain in the winning lineup, their teams are 74 wins and 32 losses, which represents a winning percentage of 70%. That means the captain from the winning lineup comes from the winning team 70% of the time. The overall straight-up record by position breaks down as follows. Running backs, their teams are 25 wins and 8 losses, which represents 76%. Wide receivers, 19 wins and 14 losses, which represents 58%. Quarterbacks, 19 wins and 7 losses, which represents 73%. Now, do these numbers uncover the mystery for the winning lineup tonight on the Showdown slate between the Rams and 49ers? Absolutely not. But what it does provide us is information that can give us an edge. And in the end, that's all we're looking for is an edge. Some of the main takeaways from this is that the underdog running back has been the captain for the winning lineup more than any other position, 20% of the time. Running backs combined for almost 1/3 of the winning lineups, representing 32%. And the captain for the winning lineup comes from the winning team 70% of the time. Now, those are things that I use in my overall process, which involves first, I take a stand. Who do I think will win? I look at the matchups. What is the path to victory? Who are the players that need to be involved for this path to victory? Is it the running game matchup that favors this team? Is it the passing game? How are they going to get there? And what will the other team have to do to be competitive? And then I identify a few players, usually between 4 and 6 players, that I feel have a path to be the leading scorer based on that game theory of who I think is going to win and how they're going to win. In tonight's game, I'm leaning towards the 49ers to bounce back from a disappointing loss last last weekend, which was a last-second loss on a touchdown pass to Julio Jones to Atlanta, which opened the door for Seattle to move into a tie with the 49ers. Up until that point, the 49ers kind of had a stranglehold on first place, and they were expected to win last week against Atlanta and fell on their face at home. Atlanta was competitive and in a position to win at the end of the game, and they won, took the game from the 49ers. The 49ers obviously want to run the ball and control the game with their stingy defense. The Rams were exposed last week by the Dallas Cowboys as Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard each ran for over 100 yards. The Rams offense faces a dilemma as the 49ers have a defensive versus the running back. They're number 1 versus the running back position. They're number 7 versus the wide receiver position. And I look for the Rams to try to attack the short intermediate routes with Kupp and Woods to get the ball out of Goff's hands as quickly as possible and not let the 49ers dominate the game with their defense and running game. I do expect George Kittle to play a big role in this game as the Rams cornerbacks will force Jimmy Garoppolo to Kittle, which is not going to be a good matchup for the Rams. And with that being said, this is the matchup, or this is the lineup that I'm working on and why. The first thing, I'm going to actually give you 2. Now remember, the whole idea of this video isn't to give you my picks and my lineup for you to run out and put it into a contest. If you do, and I'm in the same contest, we'll split. No big deal. I'd rather have something than nothing. But I'm going to show you my process and what I'm thinking, utilizing the information that I've already shared with you. In this lineup, I went to the 49ers defense. Real stingy. They're only 6,900 in the captain spot, which allows me to get some other players that I like into this lineup. They force turnovers. Goff has had a propensity to turn the ball over, especially on the road. I think the 49ers are going to come in angry and motivated in this game. They're definitely playing for a lot. And so are the Rams. I mean, as I mentioned, they're on playoff life support. They're pretty much done if they don't win tonight. So I think this will be a really competitive game, but I think the 49ers defense is going to force the issue. They are a little bit banged up. I believe Richard Sherman's due back tonight. So I don't think it's going to be an easy task throwing the ball for Goff, but I believe that's how they're going to have to try to stay in the game. And if the 49ers get a lead and the Rams are forced to throw, that's where you get a lot of your defensive fantasy points is from the passing game, because all kinds of things can happen. Sack fumble, interception, pick six, all kinds of things happen when you're forced to throw and a defense is able to pin their ears back and come after you. So next I'm going to use Coleman. I really like Coleman this week. Last week, the 49ers, part of the reason they lost was they had some issues with fumbling. Coleman was the one running back that didn't fumble last week. Mostert, I believe, fumbled once, and Breida, I believe, fumbled twice, if I'm correct. And I think they're going to try to use Coleman a little bit more, get him some passes out of the backfield, like they used him earlier in the season. And I think he'll go over underlooked at 3,200. That's a nice price, and I believe he's going to play an integral part in this game tonight. Next, I'm going to use both quarterbacks, Jimmy G and Goff. I think they both provide a nice floor. They definitely have difficult matchups versus both defenses, but at some point they're going to have to move the ball, and I think it's going to be through the air. Both teams are really stingy versus the run. The 49ers are obviously number 1 versus the run, but I believe they're going to have to throw the ball as well. And then I'm going to give each of them a target. I'm going to give Garoppolo, George Kittle, who he targets a ton. Kittle averages 16.4 fantasy points per game, so it's a nice floor. He goes to him a lot. I don't think he's going to be able to go downfield to Sanders and Samuel. I think Samuel actually has a little bit better matchup, but I like Kittle, and he fits in this particular lineup. And then I'm going to put one of Goff's targets, Cooper Kupp. Now, this lineup, I've left 2,700 on the table. Now, the average winning lineup so far this year is leaving just a little over $1,000 on the table. This is a lot, but I'm thinking with it being a lot, this also might be contrarian to what other people are doing. I'm sure George Kittle will be real popular in the captain's spot. I think Kittle will provide some points. Um, there was a showdown with the 49ers a few weeks ago, not too long ago, that Kittle actually was the captain for the winning lineup. He was one of the two tight ends this year. That the other one was in the first game of the year, the Giants and Cowboys, Evan Ingram. But this fits this way. I really like it. I left some money on the table there, and as I said, it just makes sense. There's some things you could do if you wanted to take Coleman out. That would open the door for maybe another target for Goff. But you could actually even get Breida in there, who's 200 more than Coleman. But for me, I'm gonna leave Coleman in there. I just feel like he's gonna get some passes in DraftKings PPR. Targets out of the backfield can add up. So there's that manual one that I'm working on. And if you decide to use this, if you see this Cowboy Fan 215 up there in a contest, that's me, because this is definitely a lineup that I'm going to be using. But I've used the information that I shared with you. I got my captain from the team that I think is going to win the game. I think they do have a path to scoring some defensive points based and being high score. If this is a low scoring game, and the game totals where it is, it's not high. Two decent defenses. I don't think there's going to be a lot of offensive fireworks, but I do believe that the 49ers are viable and Goff can turn the ball over, and that would have a positive effect on Coleman as well, with them scoring. A lot of times, if the defense is scoring, that obviously takes away the chances for your offensive players to do any scoring, and can have a negative effect. And I like having both quarterbacks with a top target in there, and it just makes sense. Now, another one, I usually only do one, but it's Christmas. Another one that I'm working on is I actually have, in the captain spot, I actually have Raheem Mostert. Mostert did fumble last week, and Breida had 2, but he's been getting the majority of the carries. So I got Mostert, and I'm going to correlate it with the 49ers defense. I'm going to use the 49ers offense. Now, most of the time when I build these lineups, I usually only want to use one of the 4 between the 2 defensive special teams and the 2 field goal kickers. 2 at the most. In this particular setup, I'm going to go with 2 of them from the same team. Kickers, I like to use the kicker from the team that has the highest implied total. It just makes sense. They're expected to score more points, so I use the kicker from that team. And they do provide a nice floor. In the lower scoring game, you can see some drives stall out. And you can see Gold and Zerline. Greg DeLeg, who's a little bit banged up. I'm not sure he's going to have that booming leg tonight, but Gold has been pretty accurate this year. He can miss some, as we can remember. He actually left Chicago for those reasons, but I like that, and it just correlates well with Gold, the 49ers defense, and the 49ers running game. From the Rams, I'm going to use Todd Gurley. He does have a very difficult matchup, probably the worst possible matchup possible, but they are going to have to run the ball some. He's been getting the carries. They get down on the goal line, they're going to give it to him. I think last week or the week before, maybe it was last week, Mac Brown actually vultured one from him in that beat down by Dallas. But I like Gurley here. I don't expect a huge game out of him, but I believe that he's viable, and it just goes with this particular build that I'm building. I'm also going to put George Kittle in there. He's going to get targeted a ton, He's Garoppolo's main weapon in PPR, and another thing about Gurley, he does catch a lot of passes out of the backfield. With Kittle too, he gets a lot of targets, so it just makes sense to have him in there. It fits. I have 10,500 left, and I'm actually going to go to Cooper Kupp. Now you can use any of the Rams um, wide receivers. Cooks actually has a good matchup today too. San Francisco's no slouch on the pass defense, but I like Cooper Kupp. Think he might fly under the radar a little bit and go under-owned. For the last few weeks, he hasn't had those big games like he was having earlier in the season. I do believe he scored a touchdown in 3 straight games, so he's got a nice floor. This particular lineup now leaves 1,500 on the table, which is less than the previous lineup that I showed you. And I really like this one. It correlates well, makes sense, and I will be using this lineup as well. Now, as I always do, I use an optimizer, whether I'm building lineups for the main slate, Showdown, whatever contest, and I take the players that I'm interested in. In this case, the captains. Like I said, I'll pick between 4 and 6 captains, and I'll set the minimum, maximum exposures, and then I'll go down and check off most of the players in the flex position. There's some of the lower ones that I don't like to totally punt. I mean, the ideal isn't to go down here and put in Kyle Nelson and hope that he's the one player that will stumble into the end zone that nobody has, and you'll win a showdown. Now, I've never won a showdown contest. I probably have about an 85 to 90% cash percentage. I believe in my process. I know one day I will win one of these. And I play the GPP, the larger GPPs, some of the head-to-heads, some of the 50-50s, the double-ups, and things like that. So I don't normally go down in this area. There might be a couple in this particular game. The lowest I've won, I believe, was Mac Brown. And so I set the maximum exposures for them. Like Mac Brown, I didn't want more than 5% of him. And I set my optimizer that I use from a paid site. I set it to 150 lineups. And I don't put many rules at all, especially on Showdown, because anything can happen in Showdown. And what I'm looking for is the different randomization of the players that I like. Because doing it manually, I'm not going to see all the different ways to do it. And this is one way that I can do it and look at it and say, yeah, I like that. And so oftentimes I'll see a lineup and maybe tweak it a little bit. Now, I can tell you that has burned me a few times trying to put my own spin on it. But I set it for 150. There's been a couple times it did give me 150, usually with the exposures that I have, and just a couple. Now, I do use 2 rules. One rule is if I have a quarterback in the captain spot, I want at least 2 targets of his in the flex position. If I use a wide receiver in the captain spot, I at least want his quarterback in a flex position, because there's only going to be one way for him to score, and that's if the quarterback throws him the ball. I mean, you can get a reverse for a touchdown or something, but one play like that's not going to be enough to score enough points for the captain spot. So I let it go, and as I said, I believe it was tonight or today when I ran it, it was able to give me 133 out of the 150 requested lineups. That means all the players I like with the few rules and the minimum maximum exposure set. That's what it was able to generate out of 150 requested. Now, as I've always done, I always share with you guys the first lineup that was generated. I'm going to give you 2. It's Christmas, and I won't let you guys see what the lineup was able to generate with the players that I have in the player pool. Captain spot, not surprisingly, was George Kittle. Next, it had Greg the Leg from the Rams. Field goal kicker. If you want to check this, I did see earlier that he was definitely banged up. He's expected to play. He's got a quadricep injury. The Rams opted not to sign another kicker ahead of Saturday's contest, which seems to indicate Zerline's availability. While fantasy owners may want to have a plan in place in the likely event the 31-year-old can't play, it's clear the Rams trust their kicker's health in a do-or-die playoff situation against the 49ers. As I mentioned, this is a do-or-die game for the Rams. He just might not be able to hit them 55, 60-yard field goals with the quadricep injury. Next, it has the 49ers defense. It has Todd Gurley, Jared Goff, and Jimmy Garoppolo. And left, oftentimes the very first lineups generated by my optimizer, it'll try to spend all the money, which it did in this one. It's got Kittle. It makes sense having him in the captain spot. He gets a ton of targets, PPR, Draftkings. It makes sense teaming him up with Garoppolo. Then you have Goff team with Gurley, covering a lot of their scoring with their field goal kicker and the 49ers defense. This makes sense. It's probably not going to be too contrarian, especially when they spend all of it, but it's interesting. And I told you I would give you one more. It had, and this was interesting, it had Gurley in the captain spot, Robbie Gould in the flex. Again, it had the 49ers defense. It had Jared Goff, George Kittle, and Jimmy G. This one also left 0 on the table. And not too far off of the other one. We've got both quarterbacks. You got Kittle with the 49ers and their kicker. And this with Gurley, definitely in the captain spot, you need him to get in the end zone. And so that's interesting. You got big pieces of the offenses that are likely to do the scoring, even in a game that has potentially does have a low game total of 45 and a half points. So it's not supposed to be too high scoring. And so there you go. Again, it spent all 50,000. This was generated by my optimizer, and I'll use these. Like I'll go and look at maybe the 25-cent 20 entries, and now that I have these different randomizations, I can just go down through there, select the ones that I like, and move on with it. So I want to get this video out and posted in plenty of time before the game starts tonight, because I also have my tight end, defensive, special teams, and my lineup building video. But I wanted to get this out for tonight's primetime game for you guys. So I want to thank you for joining me. I encourage you to please drop any opinions or comments that you may have below. Please share this video, like it, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that notification bell so you get notified of my next video. My subscribers have been trending upwards, and I really appreciate that. And my viewers have went way up, and I really encourage you to become a subscriber. You don't have anything to lose. It's free. I got some really good information, and I'm just asking you for a chance. I'll be back shortly to post my tight end, defense, special teams video, and then my lineup building video for tomorrow's main slate. You can also follow me on Twitter at winningabout. Don't forget the injury report on this game. Right around 6:50 to 7 o'clock, the injury report will be released for this. So make sure you check that. Even if a player doesn't have an injury designation now, you want to check it just in case. A few weeks ago, no one seen it coming. And last second, Robert Woods from the Rams was ruled out due to a family matter. So you never know. So always check that for any contest. But in Showdown, you only have 6 positions, and a 0 definitely puts you in a bad position. So again, my name is Ty Patton. This is all about winning daily fantasy sports. Good luck, and I'll see you guys again real soon. Thank you.